In Russia, there is concern about joint nuclear exercises by Poland and France. However, its nuclear rhetoric is becoming more restrained. Meanwhile, Putin keeps insisting that the war in Ukraine must continue, ignoring facts, common sense and logic. My name is Albina Pidhirniak. I'll share more news next. In Russia, nuclear rhetoric has become much more restrained. Before, no matter what happened, they would bring up the nuclear button and seemed ready to press it at any time. Now Peskov has commented on events in Europe in a much more cautious way.
Here you need to understand the details, what kind of weapons we are talking about, in which countries. But, of course, this once again probably shows Europe's aspiration in terms of further militarization and nuclearization in terms of nuclear weapons. This is something that does not contribute to stability and predictability on the European continent.
In the Russian State Duma, they also commented on joint nuclear exercises. Kartapolov said that this increases tensions on the continent and that's it. Quite modest for Russia.
As for the next insane initiative of European politicians, it is even difficult to comment, because all this leads to a further escalation of tensions on the European continent, where everything is already very complicated. And, well, Macron, of course, he has a little bit left, he is already a down pilot. And Tusk would have thought about his people, about his citizens. But lately, European politicians have lost their ability to think. Therefore, one can only sympathize with the citizens of these states, who are forced to suffer under the leadership of such leaders in quotation marks.
And Poland does not have nuclear weapons. Will they take these bombs from the French, attach them and fly them?
You see, well, it's not a fact that real ammunition will be used. Maybe these will be some dimensional and weight models, but the fact that they will work out these issues, well, with varnish. We have something to answer. We do not need to conduct such exercises. And nuclear forces are ready to carry out any order of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief.
Medvedev also decided to comment on the nuclear exercises. Nuclear destruction is his favorite topic. Here he traditionally started manipulating the questions of whether NATO's Article 5 would be used if a war in Russia begins.
The question is not trivial, especially considering that what he calls crazy European leaders are actively pushing the idea of war with Russia. France and Poland, described as leading examples of militarism and Russophobia, have even started preparing for joint nuclear exercises. Also, the production of drones for Kyiv in several European countries has added more tension to the already uneasy situation on the continent. So, will the Americans step in to support Europe in such a case? In his opinion, no. And not because of Trump's critical attitude toward Europeans or the current conflict with Iran that is taking up U.S. resources. He argues that Washington does not really need Europe and does not feel sorry for it. Europe is described as an annoying relative who is used to benefiting from the host's table. As an ally, he claims Europe is weak. He says this was shown by the conflict in the Middle East. EU economies are struggling, migration is out of control, and the US has many of its own internal problems. Because of this, he concludes that European countries should not expect strong US involvement in a possible conflict with Russia. He says Europe is not strong enough on its own, even though it is increasing military spending and discussing creating a new military bloc within the EU. He suggests that before talking about confronting Russia, European countries should realistically assess their own strength without relying on the US, including their military production, infrastructure, and arsenals. Voila, Boberku.
Putin supposedly went out of meet ordinary people, but we understand that with his strict security, he doesn't really travel. The people he meets are likely part of a staged show.
Today is the day of local self-government, and on this occasion the president's schedule includes a meeting with the heads of municipalities. The meeting is important. This is not the first time the president has met on the occasion of this holiday. It is very meaningful and very much in demand for the president, because we are talking about a meeting with people who are directly on the ground, dealing with daily round-the-clock trial problems of our citizens in a variety of settlements. And all, in fact, the main problems, all the achievements, they are visible to the naked eye on earth. A meeting without any rigid agenda, a free conversation. Participants pose questions to the head of state, tell him about the situation in a particular area. The president himself is also keenly interested in how things are going. The meeting, of course, will be open to the press. Further, during the day, the president also has a number of meetings and internal meetings of a non-public nature. This will be the president's schedule today.
Meanwhile, Kremlin officials continue to use escalating rhetoric against European countries. In particular, State Duma Speaker Volodin again claimed that global conflicts supposedly started from the United Kingdom.
This is very correct, timely, and places many accents. The role of England in the atrocities, in the creation of concentration camps, it is obvious. But this is not just hushed up. The same England is doing everything to create problems in other states. I emphasize that they are undemocratic. They hang labels, but they themselves are the founders of the genocide of other peoples and the creation of this fascist system. Our colleague was right when he said this. As for visiting ambassadors of foreign states, all our places, including the memory and victims of political repression, they will go everywhere where it is possible to divide our society, trying to play on it, speculate on it. But we also need to become wiser. Understanding this, it is necessary to stop supporting those who today, outside our state, having left in difficult times, are forming a problematic agenda in relation to the country.
The Russian dictator has taken control of law enforcement, the courts and other systems after turning prisons into a way to recruit as many fighters as possible. He now says that people should take into account the realities in which Russians live.
In this regard, I would like to draw the attention of the supervisory authorities as well as to appeal to the judicial community, to bailiffs. It is important to take into account all the circumstances in which we live and work, including situations where there are objective obstacles to the exercise of certain powers, including financial restrictions. We know, we understand very well, especially you working on the ground, we are well aware that, unfortunately, in part we are forced to use those funds that are not prescribed in the regulatory framework or face financial constraints, face with
которые не прописаны в нормативной базе, или сталкиваться с ограничениями финансового характера, сталкиваться с
with various inconsistencies in the legislation. Well, life is complex and diverse, as lawyers say, the law is being adopted and it is already outdated. Life, it always dictates its own laws. You have to make decisions quickly, from which you have to make decisions on which people's lives directly depend. And here, of course, it is important to adhere to the regulations. But there is nothing more important than the life and health of people at all. And supervisory control bodies, courts, of course, must proceed from these realities. Let me remind you that the Constitutional Court of Russia has supported this approach, and I ask the control, law enforcement and judicial authorities to rely on it in law enforcement and judicial practice.
Putin keeps talking about the Second World War. He said that Soviet troops won because Russians needed socks and sent them to the front. But what he's really trying to do now is distract attention from what is happening on the battlefield today.
You know, soon we will once again celebrate the victory of the Soviet people in the Great Patriotic War. Just now, our main laureate, standing on this stage next to his comrades, spoke about the rear. Do you know what I was thinking just now? During the Great Patriotic War, the entire rear worked for the front, for the sake of our soldiers, for the sake of our defenders. But not only tanks, planes, guns, shells were made. After all, in the most difficult months of the Great Patriotic War, in the frosty months of 1941-1942, this is how children, grandmothers, women knitted socks, sent parcels and gifts to the front. And why didn't they do this in Germany? Their soldiers froze to death near Moscow, and no socks came from Germany. It is in this unity that the success of our victories lies. So it will be now.
Russians are publishing more and more videos of cemeteries. They say these places were empty not long ago, but now they are filled with Russian occupiers.
There is no end, no edge. A new tire cemetery in Krasnoyarsk. And here's a bonus. Just few. Everything is like this. Everything is in flags. This is still in the field of view of the camera. Just look at this scale of burial.
We stopped at our own at the cemetery in Pargalovo, Leningrad region. Guys, there was an empty field here in the fall. Look at what is happening here now. Looking at all this, my heart stops. These are our fathers, husbands, sons. How is this possible? How was this allowed? And there is no end in sight. And there is simply no end in sight to this. There are not even words. There are no words. Forgive us, please. Rest in peace, dear ones. Tears just well. And there the blanks go to new ones. You see, there are already wooden boxes prepared for new excavations, so to speak. Nightmare. Rest in peace. Forgive us, please. May the earth be down to you.
Putin, despite the huge number of deaths among his troops and the sharp decline of the Russian economy, continues to say that Russia will not stop and will keep fighting using its own terrorist methods.
The security zone we are talking about is gradually, but it is being created there, in the adjacent territory. We will continue to act until we eliminate the threat to our border regions. As for development, yes, thank you for noting the efforts that the government is making to help the residents of the Kursk region. It is our duty, of course, to help people. This is an obvious thing, and I hope that all the events that are held in these areas are in demand and people feel it.
Dear viewers, thank you for watching this video. Write in the comments where you're watching us from. I'll traditionally remind that it is important for us to know the geography of our audience. Thank you for support Ukraine. Together we will win.